Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Amati Auctions based in the UK. We're going to have a look at their specialist auction, which is finishing on the 30th of March. It's the 29th of March, so this is ending tomorrow. As you can see, first lot ending in just under 19 hours. Bidding has been open since the 18th. This particular auction is the specialist one, as I said, which is the kind of higher level stuff. They also have the affordable auction, which is kind of cheaper stuff. So in general, we should see the better stuff in here. I think there's about 175, 180 lots, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, haven't counted them. I will say that I actually went to the viewing of this auction in person in London at the weekend, and it was really interesting. I looked at quite a lot of things. I didn't look too much in detail of the cellos and the bows, although I did look at some of the cellos, but I looked at all the kind of violins and violas, etc. So yeah. Definitely an interesting auction. Apologies if there's some noise with the microphone. It's just my computer is quite noisy, and I'll try and work on getting a better microphone and set up at some point in the future. So as I always like to say in these auctions, so the buyer's premium is 22% for this auction. So whatever the price ends at, you need to add that bit on top. So if this ends at £2,000, then you need to add 22% of that price on top of it at the end, and that will be your bill. Obviously, like I said, this is based in the UK, so if you're outside of the UK, if you're in Europe, or if you're kind of international, US, etc., China, whatever, then you might have to pay substantial shipping fees or import export duties, etc. So just bear that in mind. And obviously you might have to pay shipping fees if you're in the UK as well, depending where you are. They usually have collections, I think, either from Wales and from London, so they're usually in London quite regularly, so it's pretty easy to deal with them. But anyway, that was a long intro and a lot of me rambling. So without further ado, as we've got a fair bit to get on with, let's crack on, and if I've got anything interesting to say, I shall say it. So we're looking at a cello Mittenwald 19th century. Current bid is 2,000. We've got 2,000 to 4,000 was the estimate, so it's kind of right at the beginning there. I don't think this is anything too exciting really. And then we've got a Cello Workshop of Johannes Baptista Havelaar, Vienna, 1930, offered with a bow. 3,250 is the current bid, so that's a bit better than the 400 to 600 estimate that we had before. Looks in fairly good condition. Yeah, not too bad. A few kind of closed cracks, so that's fine. Ooh, and let's not forget, as always, Amati with their famous 360 viewer. It'd be cool if they could do that for the scroll. That would actually be pretty epic, but anyway, so far it's not happening. Cello Mittenwald circa 1800. Current bid is 900. Actually, I think I remember looking at this cello. Actually, it's a quite rough shape, but it has some charm to it, I think. Yeah, it definitely needs a bit of work, that one, but it's interesting. A cello 18th century, repaired by J.F. Lott, London, 4,750. Current bid 4,000 to 6,000 is the estimate, so it's about there. I don't quite recall looking at this one, but it seems fairly decent. Some interesting work done there, replacement work, and a lot of repaired stuff, although it doesn't look too bad from afar. An English cello, ascribed to Vincenzo Panormo, certificate of Max Moller, Amsterdam. So 12,000 is the current bid. 12 to 15,000 is the estimate. And it's quite tidy in the scroll, and you've got the other documents as well. There's a lot of repair to the ribs, so you can have a look at these documents in your own leisure. A cello Miracle circa 1910, 3,750 is the current bid. This looks fairly standard, looks quite well made. And a cello, Germany, circa 1910. The following signature certifies that this instrument is a genuine production of the violin maker to the Royal Court of Saxony, Dresden. A.L. Paulus, 1400 is the current bid. So nothing too outrageous to see there. And we've got a cello by Joseph Schuster, Beiersdorf, Erlangen, 1989. No bids on that one so far. This looks fairly low kind of stuff there. Cello, 19th century, current bid 3,750. Looks fairly standard. And a violin by Ferdinando Galeano, Naples, 1771, with a hill and son of reference. So the estimate is 60 to 120,000. Starting bid is 60, no bids so far, which I think is interesting. Body length 350, so it's a bit smaller. Violin was purchased by W.E. Hill and Sons around 1916. It was originally recorded with the instrument reference D141, sold to someone in the 1920s, bought back later, etc., and that carries on. Dendro giving 1746 and 1755, cross matches with various kind of high level instruments there. So yeah, I saw this in person. I thought it was really nice. Yeah, it's been suggested that perhaps that length of back is maybe a bit small for some people. I'm not sure, and in person I didn't really notice, but I'm not a player, so I can't really comment. But it's a nice looking instrument. It's obviously had some fairly extensive repair there, and the scroll has been cheek patches on both sides, although it looks like pretty good, quite a nice scroll. So no, nice item. I don't think the starting price is unreasonable really, but we'll see how that goes. And a violin, possibly JDS Klotz Mittenwald, circa 1750, so 3,250 is the current bid. I think there's always a market for these kind of Klotz-ish violins for sure. That's interesting enough. A violin workshop of JTL Miracle, circa 1910. Current bid is 300 on that. Good to see the front of scroll pictures. It's my favourite image to see, I think. Violin workshop of Louis Lowendahl, Dresden, circa 1880, with 4 donated bows. Wow, no bids on that so far. I think this is very much trade instrument. And a violin, Mark Nikirkin, circa 1780, starting bid £800. I'm pretty sure that this was in the last kind of specialist sale and didn't sell. It's a bit of a weird looking thing. What's the length of back actually on that? 352. That's not too bad actually. It's a weird looking thing in person as well. A violin, possibly Klotzkuhl Mittenwald, circa 1790, starting bid 4.5. There's nothing on that so far. There's a bit of writing on this area of looks like it's had some work done on the back near where the sound post is, but it's hard to see, so that's a bit of a red flag. Now a violin by Nicola Galeano, Naples, circa 1775, with an insurance letter from Bournemouth and Sons from 1989. And Dendro, Peter Ratcliffe, 1769. Good cross matches with some good kind of makers there, so fairly interesting. This particular violin I thought is really nice in terms of kind of varnish color, the way it kind of just looks in general, but it definitely needs some work. This the back on this violin is really beautiful in real life, really beautiful and really catches the light amazingly. It's a beautiful color varnish. I can't really say that strongly enough. It really is like a wonderful looking violin. Needs obviously some kind of these repairs are closed, but they need to be looked at. There's some woodworm issues, so there's definitely not without issues, but it's a very nice scroll, beautiful varnish, really is beautiful. Really nice scroll. There's the kind of appraisal there in '89 for £25,000, the insurance appraisal, and then we see here on the condition report, it's had a bit of a rough life. These cracks are all closed, but they need to be probably cleaned and opened again and kind of done a bit better. We've unfortunately got quite a bit of woodworm, of which when you look at it in person at the top, on the top bout, it's pretty obvious, and this is always a bit of a problem. Looks like new block there, some other kind of replaced bits of wood here and there, so it's not without issues unfortunately, but I don't know, I quite like it. I think if you could get it for 50,000 or so with your extra fees and things, you'd probably be looking about 10,000 to get it kind of up to scratch. This one also a slightly smaller body length, so it may be unpopular for some, but I thought it was pretty good. You can see here, you see this kind of worm track here, and it's hard to know exactly where the worm has gone, but I think really beautiful varnish on this. A nice instrument. If I had that kind of money, then I would definitely be curious of that. Well, I've talked about that one for long enough now, so I think we can carry on. So violin, late 19th century, current bid 325. Actually, let's see. Oh, never recognised that mark before. That's curious. Needs a bit of work on that. Labelled Franciscus Maria Pupanatus, 1839, Lausanne. Interesting. Violin, France, 1890. Current bid is 220. It's not too exciting. And a violin, Germany, circa 1910. Violin Workshop of Breton Brevet, Mircourt, circa 1910. Current bid is 300. This is fairly kind of tradey violin as well. And a Violin Workshop of Charles Enel, Paris, 1922. Receipt from Sotheby's there, starting with 5.5, but there's no bids on that so far. Actually looks like fairly interesting violin. So what's the receipt? Let's see, £61.50. Oh, that's the repair. What was the Sotheby's? 2,800 with the £280 buyer's premium in 89. That's interesting. 3/4 size violin, Mircourt, circa 1920. Violin, probably Scotland, 19th century. This is a very interesting violin that I looked at quite a bit. Absolutely bizarre arching and shape, but really kind of quite sweet actually. I like the wood on the back, but it's bizarre arching, bizarre shape, just a bit of a strange one really. But it's got real charm, and also probably the smallest scroll eye that I've kind of, or smallest scroll even that I've come across. Like you can't, it doesn't do it justice how small this the head of this scroll is. You really need to see it in person. It's really quite mad. Obviously a few repaired cracks, and the worm's been at this one as well. But yeah, a real interesting one, that one. Violin by William Hill and Sons, London, circa 1887. Current bid is £7,000. I mean, I like some of these older Hills violins, and I like some of them have kind of these really interesting varnishes that are kind of almost like translucent, kind of weird, almost like you can see it looks almost like you're at a rave or something. It's kind of very strong varnish, but this one in person not so much. Wasn't massively taken by that one. This one, a violin by Hugh Cooper, Glasgow 1911. Current bid is £1,200, so it's kind of right on the estimate there. I don't remember too much about this particular one. And a Violin Workshop of Louis Lowendahl, Dresden 1886. No bids on that. It's another, it's kind of tradey-ish kind of thing. And a violin for Beer and Sons, circa 1920. Current bid £1,100. Always popular, these instruments that were made for Beer and Son. They always seem to do quite well at auction. And a violin probably Workshop for Louis Lowendahl, Germany, circa 1910. This one has a bid of 210 so far. And a violin Mark Nikirkin, circa 1780. No bids on that. Actually kind of an interesting violin to hold in person, but not really anything too crazy. A violin France, second half of the 19th century, starting at 1,000, but no bids so far. And a violin probably England, 19th century, no bids so far. It's a little bit strange, this one. And a violin by H.J. Hamilton, Whitling Bay, 1913. Current bid 230. This is a bit of a interesting one, kind of Guarnerius copy of some kind. It's a bit bizarre, so definitely a bit strange. And a violin Workshop of Cowson, Mirkle, circa 1900. Slightly different to the normal Cowson stuff that I come across. Definitely interesting. No bids so far. Violin 19th century. Starting bids 1,000. Interesting F-holes and a bit of a curious varnish. Violin by Nicolas Augustin Chapuis, Paris 1765. Current bid 2.5. This is actually really nice. I like this. I'm quite a fan actually of the Chapuis stuff, I have to say, and this one I really did like actually. I thought this was a nice one, so I'm not surprised that someone's bidding on this. Yep, this is kind of my type of French violin. That violin early 20th century, current bid is 800. And a violin by Frank Watson, Rochdale 1909, current bid is 450. Violin by Joseph Gaffino, Paris, circa 1750. There's no bids on that so far. Interesting looking violin. And then violin early 20th century, no bids so far. Violin France early 20th century. Looks like current bid 1,000. Bit kind of yellowy orange in varnish. Violin probably France, circa 1880, current bid 210. What's the 316 body length? Interesting enough, actually. The scroll's kind of curious. Yeah, some of the varnish is a bit more interesting than normal, and actually some of the purfling is a bit curious. See that? It's an interesting, some interesting parts to that one for sure. A Violin Mercourt 20th century, labelled H. Emile Blondelet. It's this kind of typical French style that I'm not particularly fond of. Violin for Beer and Sons, circa 1920, current bid 1500. Like I said, the beer violins, always popular. This one actually was quite nice, I have to say. In person, I really like that choice of wood for the back. It's quite an interesting one, more interesting than most of the ones. That I think is actually a nice violin. I think that will do well at the auction. I think it will go a bit higher. Violin probably by E. Somni Usha, Mercourt 1879, current bid 750. And a violin 19th century, off wood with 2 bows. Starting bid 1000. No bids so far. I remember this one as well being like really long and narrow. Like it's a bit. I picked it up and I kind of instantly thought this is a bit weird. Let's see actually what the 361. It's quite long. I think it's just kind of long and narrow. It's a bit strange. Violin circa 1900. Current bid is 200. And a violin by Walter H. Mason, Manchester, 1890, starting bid 1500. Interesting enough back on that, and varnish. That's quite curious. I think Walter Mason is another one of these makers that churned out like a crazy amount of instruments in his life. From what I've read, definitely a few thousand. Corneless violin. France, 19th century, ivory edgework. Some of it's missing, I think, if I remember rightly. I really like these kind of shield heads that you get on some instruments, some violins. Yeah, pretty cool. Violin circa 1800 with a bow. Starting bid is 4000. Definitely interesting. Pins on the back there. Quite a bizarre kind of squat scroll. It almost looks a bit squashed in. Certainly interesting. Violin by David Tekla, Rome, 1736. Sold a certificate of Heart and Son, 1928. 60 to 80 is the estimate. 60,000 is the starting bid. 353. It's pretty good. Dendro report, 1719 to 1722. There's some cross-reference information. Yeah, I had a look at this one as well. I wasn't so kind of excited by this. It's kind of not really my thing kind of visually, but it seemed nice enough. I think it also needs a bit of work, but nevertheless interesting enough. Worm to the to part of the peg box, suspected soundpost crack on front, small crack on the back of scroll. So you know, it's not too bad. I mean, to be expected for an instrument that's that old. You can obviously see there's a few other documents and things like that, so definitely curious. A Violin Workshop of Thomas Craig, Aberdeen. Current bid is 375. Violin Workshop of Kalsar, Miracle, circa 1910. No bids on that so far, which I find a bit surprising because these Kalsar school things are pretty popular usually. A Violin, probably Scotland, circa 1800. Starting bids at 5,000. Don't actually recall looking at this one. Interesting scroll. Violin School of Crask, England, circa 1870. Current bid £1,800. I think I did look at this one, and I think that I thought that it kind of looked a bit better in quality perhaps than some of the Crask things that you see. A Violin by Perry and Wilkinson, Dublin, circa 1810, with some bows, starting with 1500. I just think these are really not that popular, unfortunately. I think 1500 is a bit too much. I mean, I quite like these Perry and Wilkinson violins, and I've got one that needs some repair, but I feel that that's a bit much, unfortunately. If it was a Thomas Perry on his own, then perhaps, or even worth a bit more, but the Perry and Wilkinson, not sure about that. A Violin France, circa 1890, with 2 bows. Current bid is 500. And Violin Germany, circa 1910, starting bid 300. This is absolutely horrible. I think this should have just been in the affordable auction. I don't really know why that was in the specialist one, being honest. Violin, probably England, circa 1850. Starting bid is 1,000. Yeah, that I don't think I was too kind of impressed with that one either. Violin France, circa 1940. Starting bid is 2.5. Yeah, this is an example of a type of French violin that I really don't personally like, unfortunately. A Violin by Charles Harris, the second, Oxfordshire, circa 1820. Starting bid is 3,000. This is actually really nice violin, I have to say. Actually, this is really nicely made. Not sure I'd quite go to 3 for it, but it was nice. 361. It's a little bit big, but this back was really beautiful, and the work on this is a very nice violin, I have to say. Yeah, very nice indeed. Very nice. A Violin, probably School of Andrea Castagneri, Paris, circa 1750. Current bid 2,100. And a Violin Germany, circa 1900. They've got 500 bid on that. And a Violin, circa 1900. Current bid is 500. That's pretty mad looking violin for sure. And a Violin for Rushworth and Draper, circa 1900. No bids on this so far. It's going to be a kind of trade thing. And a Violin, probably by John Johnson, London, circa 1750. Current bid is 2,000. I think this was quite a nice violin, and it's good to see the English violins getting some love. It's had a lot of repairs on that, so it's a bit curious. Violin France, 20th century, current bid £1,700. And a violin France circa 1930, starting bid £1,500. Violin Miracle circa 1910, current bid is £700. And a violin for Beer and Sons Miracle circa 1910, current bid is £500. Violin Possibly France circa 1930, 2000 is the starting bid on that. Violin Possibly Turin circa 1880, 3000 is the starting bid. Head pinned with new piece of wood that can be seen on the back of scroll. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I vaguely remember seeing this one in person. I was a bit kind of unsure. It's a shame there isn't a picture of the back of the scroll, because that's an interesting thing to observe as well. Like I said, it would be great if you could do the 360 view of the scroll as well. It'd be amazing. But so far, that's a no. So Violin Germany, circa 1900. Starting bid is 400. This looks like a pretty standard kind of trade thing. Violin England, circa 1840. Inscribed internally with the beer number. Starting bid 1500, but there's no bids so far. It looks interesting enough as well. Quite a cool scroll. And a violin Possibly School of Mario Garda, Mantua, 20th century, starting bid 5,000. Definitely interesting looking. 356, not too bad. Violin Germany, circa 1890. No bids on this so far. And a Violin Workshop of J.B. Collin, Miracle, 1890. Violin School of Klotz Mittenwald, circa 1790, starting bid 2,000. Not so many bids on these later ones. Definitely Worm has been happy at eating that one. Violin School of Neuner and Hornsteiner Mittenwald, circa 1880, current bid £400. Violin Germany, circa 1910. Violin by Charles Crummond, Aberdeen, circa 1820. No bids on that so far. Interesting scroll, actually. Not a bad violin, actually. Not bad. Violin Miracle, early 20th century. Current bid is 300. Some post crack on table, so that needs some attention. Violin Workshop of Carl Joseph Helmer, Prague, circa 1760. With an insurance letter there. Current bid is 600. It's a bit of an interesting one. A lot of work needs doing on that one. Yeah, interesting violin, that one. Actually, what's the length of back on that? Yeah, 362 is quite big. Violin circa 1900. Current bid is 400. Violin England circa 1840. Not so exciting on that one. Violin Miracle circa 1910. Current bid 300. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, pretty normal. What's going on? Some impact damage, I think. That's a bit bizarre. Violin France circa 1940. Current bid 1200. Quite a lot of kind of standard type French items in this auction. Violin probably Prague circa 1780. Starting bid 2,500. Front partially half-edged, varnish altered. Interesting. That must be fairly big as well. No, 355. Very misleading. I think a lot of the shapes. Violin circa 1910. Current bid 650. A violin Mittenwald circa 1890, labelled Johannes Marshall London. Starting bid 200, no bids so far. Violin probably England, 20th century. No bids on this so far. Interesting crackulature on the varnish. Violin Mittenwald circa 1890. Starting bid 500. And let's see, it looks fairly standard. Yeah, not too bad. Interesting enough. And violin by Jakob Buchner, probably Germany, circa 1950. Sold with receipt of music Werner Wilbad, 1957, offered with a donated bow. Current bid £800. Interesting. Looks in fairly good condition. Let's see what the condition report says. Yeah, there's a little closed crack down at the bottom. Violin Miracle, circa 1900, current bid £400. Oh, missed the scroll picture there. Viola by Luigi Fabris, Venice, circa 1860, current bid is 4,000. Let's see actually how big is that? 394. Yeah, that's not too bad. Let's have a look at some pictures. This I think was actually really nice. Yeah, I think that's actually a nice viola. Shame there's no picture of the front of the scroll. I think that was quite a cool scroll from what I remember. A viola by Clifford A. Hoying, High Wycombe, 1959. Starting bid is 3.5. A viola Mittenwald, circa 1910. Starting bid is 500. This I don't think was anything too exciting. Viola Workshop of Richard Duke, London, circa 1760. Starting bid 3.5. Always like the shape of these Duke violas. Are really quite interesting. Scrolls, not so keen on, but definitely interesting. Actually, what the size of that? 378 is really quite small. Viola England, circa 1950. Starting bid is 1,000. A Viola Workshop of Evoit, England, 1953. Current bid is £2,500 on that. And a Viola Workshop of JTL, 1930. No bids on that so far. Interesting scroll. And a Viola France 19th century. Starting bid is 2,000. Bit of repair there. And a silver mounted violin, frog, probably by a member of the Picat family. Starting bid 2,000. So no bids on that so far. It's quite curious. Silver mounted cello bow, 20th century. Current bid is £1,600. And a nickel mounted cello bow, Germany. Current bid is £300. Silver mounted cello bow, probably Germany. Nickel mounted cello bow there. Current bid is £100. Silver mounted cello bow, JTL. Current bid is £2,000. Silver mounted viola bow by W.E. Hill and Sons, London. Current bid is £2,000. Nickel mounted viola bow, Germany. No bids so far. Silver mounted viola bow, Workshop of Roderick Paysold. Current bid is £100. Silver mounted viola bow, Germany. Current bid £100. Nickel mounted viola bow for Mark Lebert's Miracle, circa 1920. No bids, but starting at £600. Silver mounted violin bow, probably C.A. Thomas in Paris, circa 1920. Current bid is £1,000. And a silver mounted violin bow by Albert Nernberger. Current bid £1,000. It's got a good, nice head on that. A silver mounted violin bow Miracle, circa 1920. Starting bid £1,200. Silver mounted violin bow by Andrew McGill. Starting bid is £1,500. Silver mounted violin bow, Workshop of Bazar, Miracle, circa 1910. Starting bid £1,000. No bid so far. Silver mounted violin bow, Workshop of Albert Nürnberger, Germany. Starting bid is £1,500. Silver mounted violin bow by Paul Jacob Mittenwald. Starting bid £800. Interesting here, the head. That's wonder if that's just the image cropped. It looks a bit interesting. See what the longer image. Yeah, I think something just funny's happened with the crop of the photo for some reason. That's a bit alarming. Nickel mounted violin bow, Dodd family, London. Starting bid £1,200. This was an interesting one. I did actually look at this one a little bit, and it was curious enough, but no bids. Silver mounted violin bow by Vicold. No bids so far. Nickel mounted violin bow, Germany. Silver mounted violin bow, JTL, circa 1910. No bids on that. A silver mounted violin bow by James Tubbs, London, circa 1890. No bids so far. Nickel mounted violin bow branded Leveste. Current bid is £500. Nickel mounted violin bow France. No bids so far. Silver mounted violin bow by James Tubbs. Current bid is £1,000. Nickel mounted violin bow Germany. No bids so far. Silver mounted violin bow Germany. Current bid is £400. Silver mounted violin bow by Lothar Seifert even. Current bid £400. Silver mounted bow by W.E. Hills and Sons. Starting bid's 1,000. So, and a silver mounted violin bow workshop of Lothar Herman. Starting bid 300. Silver mounted violin bow branded Alfred Knoll. Starting bids of 400. Silver mounted violin bow by C.N. Bazin France. Starting bid 2,000. And a nickel mounted violin bow, probably School of Pacat. Description revised to nickel. Interesting. Starting at 1,500. Nickel mounted violin bow, probably France, circa 1930. And a silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Son, London. Current bid is £1,100. Silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Son, London. Starting bids at 1,000. Actually, let's go back to that one. There's something funny going on with the head there. Actually, maybe it's just a nick. Let's see what the condition report says. Yeah, it just gives a kind of, it's an abrasion it's meant to be, I think. Definitely interesting. Nickel mounted violin bow by F. Herman, Germany. Starting bids of 500. A silver mounted violin bow, Germany. Current bid 130. A silver mounted violin bow workshop of A. Fisher. Current bid 210. A silver mounted violin bow. Current bid 100. Silver mounted violin bow by Eugene Sartori, Paris, 1920. Starting bid 10,000. No bids on that. It's quite a bit of wear there on the handle. It's a massive V. Quite interesting. Of that, actually, let's have a look at the condition report while we're here. Yeah, some missing bits. Someone's taken off the thumb thing, which has been quite common. You can see some massive kind of bits missing, so it's got some issues. 10,000 perhaps a little bit much. Nickel mounted violin bow workshop of Hoyer. No bids on that so far. Silver mounted violin bow workshop of JTL. Starting bid to 800. Nickel mounted violin bow. Starting bid 300. Silver mounted violin bow. Current bid 1,000. Nickel mounted violin bow, Germany. Starting bids 200. Nickel mounted violin bow, France, circa 1910. Starting bid 1,000. Silver mounted violin bow, France. Starting 600. Silver mounted violin bow, Knott family, Germany, 19th century. Current bid 350. 7/8 size nickel mounted violin bow, Kunyohuri, Miracle, 1920. An ivory mounted violin bow, probably School of Nicolas Malin, France, circa 1850. Current bid 200. Nickel mounted violin bow, School of Pacat, France. Starting bids 1,500. A lot of bows with no bids on. Silver mounted violin bow there. Starting bid 400. A nickel mounted violin bow, workshop of Louis Bazin, Miracle. Nickel mounted violin bow, workshop of JTL, Miracle. Current bid 700 on that. Silver mounted violin bow, Germany. Current bid 250. Silver mounted violin bow, workshop of JTL. Starting bids on 700. Nickel mounted violin bow by Louis Bazin. Starting bids 1,200. Nickel mounted violin bow for Kunyohuri, Miracle. Starting bid 600. An ivory mounted transitional violin bow, England, circa 1800. Current bid 140. I had a look at this one actually. I quite liked it. Thought it was quite interesting. Bit missing off the frog, as you can see here. No faceplate either, but curious enough. Yeah, an interesting little thing for sure. Definitely curious. And the silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Son, London. Current bid is 1,100. Nickel mounted violin bow, a Fleury, current bid 400. Nickel mounted violin bow for Colin Mazar, circa 1910, current bid is 800. Silver mounted violin bow, probably France, starting bids of 800. Nickel mounted double bass bow, starting bids of 500. Have a quick look at that. The Monograph Collection, volumes 1, 2 and 3. Les Violins. Dictionary of Violin and Bow Makers. Golden Age of Violin Making Spain by Georges Posas. Index Book of Musical Luthiers, 1901. 2 indices books of musical luthiers from 1886 and 1896. Violin Bridges book by Gerald Kilbride. A violin case branded Gorge, current bid 200. Double violin case by W.E. Hills and Son, current bid 100. A viola case, branded Musafia, current bid 100. And I think that is it. Actually, I think we're at the end. Let's go back to the catalogue and just make sure. But I think that is it. We have come to the end of the Amati auction. Let's just triple check that. Yeah, I think that's it. So that's it. We've successfully looked at the Amati Specialist Auction, which is finishing tomorrow on the 30th of March 2022. Yeah, quite interesting auction actually. Some interesting violins, definitely. But I think the stars are definitely the 2 Gallianos, and that one, the Niccolo Galliano, I think is actually really beautiful. Obviously needs some work done, has some problems, but I think it's definitely got potential. So yeah, definitely an interesting auction, and I'll put a link in the description and check it out yourself. Well, yeah, thanks for watching the video, and yeah, have a look at the auction yourself if you're interested, and until next time, have a good one, and ciao for now. Bye. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.